Hi, welcome back to Cambridge Inside Out. I'm Judy Nathans.
And I'm Robert Winters.
And we have so much more we want to talk about that was generated from last night.
Yeah.
So we don't want to forget it.
Right. We have to go into like Paul Harvey mode.
I
Page
know.
one, you know?
No, whether we did the
Right?
kind of, all right, did you want to mention, all right, the bus thing?
All right, so
okay.
relatively minor thing, but
Yeah.
I have to say, you know,
Yeah.
because we were talking a little bit about sort of the problem of ideologues. So one of I thought one of the nicest little moments was during public comment. There was a representative person who's I forget exactly his title, but it was
Wes
the MBTA.
Edwards, I don't have my notes, assistant manager, the MBTA in some kind of planning thing. He works with municipalities.
Right. So the thing is, like right now, kind of in addition to sort of the rail work, the signal systems, everything that's really important with the like rail track or whatever. As far as buses are concerned. They've been rolling out things like isolated bus-only lanes in various places, and it works in some places, it doesn't work in other places, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like it's just sort of the current big thing, right? And to talk about to people around Cambridge, sort of some of the activist community, it's sort of like we must have dedicated this, we must have dedicated that.
Right.
You must have separated bike lanes, you have to do this and that. And the whole notion that maybe there are some places where some things might work or maybe not work, or where maybe some things should be shared, it's like removed from the conversation. So he was wonderful in that he basically said, look, maybe at some point these all can be accomplished within
He
the
mentioned the
roadway.
South Mass Ave problems, which that's from here to the river, right?
So there were two items. There was one that had to do with in DCR roads, putting in separate lanes on Gary's Landing. By the way, Mayor Siddiqui and Jivan Sabrina Wheeler, the man's name was Gary Elbridge.
Oh, right.
Gary. It is Gary, not Jerry.
All right. Well,
all right.
Not just those two. Everyone
I know.
mispronounces
A lot of
it.
people do it that way. But talk to Councilor Simmons. She appreciates history. It's true. So Gary's Landing Road is which is what most people just think is part of the end of Freshmont Parkway in there. But anyway, that so there was a plan to put in a two-way bikeway, which I think is absolutely a great idea there, because of the speeds and safety issues. It's just the right thing to do. But right now, it's kind of temporarily off the table. It'll eventually happen.
I don't think buses go anywhere near there, though. It's a separate issue.
Right.
Okay.
But then there was another one that was sort of related to bike lanes and protecting bus lanes, having to do sort of generically and including Massachusetts Avenue.
Right.
And so this fellow from MBTA,
Wes Edwards,
he basically said, okay, this is great. We're definitely thinking about this.
You see that in the future, but right now,
he was acknowledging that in fact even in some places, like I think along Mount Auburn. I think the pilot they did with the protected bus, the separated bus lanes or bus only
from
lanes
Watertown
has been relatively successful. I think.
Starts in Watertown.
Right, but the thing is, remember, we're also talking about two lanes, and there was never any parking to take away along there anyway.
That's true. Always works easier that way.
Yeah. So the thing is, there are some places where there's a pretty good chance of these things working.
Yes.
There's some places in Boston where these things actually can work and make some sense.
But there's been complaints too around Harvard Street and Alston,
Right. I'll say that they made the bridge from Cambridge over to Union Square, Somerville, is now two-way for traffic.
That works so well.
I think it works great, but the thing is that it's one lane now.
Going out of Cambridge is bad.
And if anybody thinks that there hasn't been a bottleneck that's been running its way all the way back to
I
Central
just like
Square.
it going back into Cambridge when I've come from Mystic Parkway or something.
But the thing is that but you're sitting there and there is a dedicated bus lane on the bridge that is empty 99.9%.
Which is what it's going to be on River Street. I hate to say it, and I know that's going to be
I know. But I think that
Mass Ave's different because you have buses coming all the time.
But he acknowledged, and I actually have heard people, even city officials, acknowledge that the South Mass Ave bus
Yeah.
bus-only lanes that
Yeah.
they have between Central Square heading out
Yeah.
toward MIT
Which is what he was referring
have
to.
not really been all that
Yeah,
successful.
and he said that,
right?
and I think he knows, he works
But
for the
if you're an
MBTA.
ideologue,
Yeah.
you don't want to hear that because
Yeah.
don't you know we have to have this and we have to have that and practicality
And
is-
now, versus, yeah.
exactly.
So he was saying have it to be shared until we can resolve this,
Right, so
wasn't he? Yeah.
I found it very refreshing to have people
Somebody
actually
else
coming
like
up
that,
there and say,
yeah.
look, come on, be serious, because in my view, actually trying to, if you want to have separated bike lanes,
Mm-hmm.
bus-only lanes, as well as some other motor vehicles passing through Central Square, there's only so much road width to work with,
Just so
and
much
if you can't
bandwidth.
wrap your head around the notion about sharing
Yeah,
buses and bikes, let's say, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying what should be,
yeah,
you better at least have that option up
right,
for discussion, and
Right. right,
you know, otherwise it's just ideology driving
yeah,
all the decisions, and it's just ridiculous at some point. So
yeah.
anyway, so that was
So
one
that was
thing.
that.
Yeah.
Let's do the broadband maybe
Yeah, so-
quickly, and then
And
I wanna
actually,
do,
so
yeah,
there are two issues that I think actually are kind of
Mhm.
going to end up being intertwined, like it or not.
oh, the,
So one is the
Right.
city manager,
Contract.
sent a
Oh,
message to
yeah.
Councilor Simmons as head of the Government Operations Committee. A few weeks back, it was referred, and they had a hearing now on the first of what I assume will be many hearings, having to do with possible extension
Extending,
of the
because he has
Louis
a
DePasquale's-
3-year contract, which is up when?
They had to give notice this year, and
Oh,
then
right.
it'll be up next January.
Okay, so
So
a
we're in
year,
the last year of the contract.
right, right,
It was like a 4.5 to 5 year
okay.
arrangement, but time flies here.
Wow, you're
Here you
kidding,
go.
it's been that long? Wow.
Yeah. And so I actually went to portion of that hearing. I couldn't stay. I had
It was
to.
in the Ackerman room, so it wasn't televised, was it?
Yeah, I had to go to work.
But it wasn't televised.
It was no. They actually moved it from the Ackerman
Oh, they
room
did?
to the Sullivan
So
chambers.
they could
So it
televise
is
it?
recorded. You
Oh,
can check out
I
the
didn't
video.
realize that, thank you, okay.
Yeah. In fact, I actually did check out the video some
So
further last night.
anything, all right, so that's an issue there, because they're discussing his.
Right. So here's why. So these are the issues that I would say are
Yeah.
actually intertwined. So
Yep,
it is inevitable when a manager's contract is coming up for discussion that city councilors are basically going to say, "Well, now's our time
Mm-hmm.
for the big ask." Okay, because now we got you over a barrel. If you want to keep your job, this is the time we can put pressure on that we might not be able to do so otherwise. So yes, that might include things like give us full-time city council aides, which I think is absurd, but so you'll hear about that, I'm sure.
oh, boy,
And I
Okay.
would be at all surprised if Louis caves and says, go right ahead, because of the promise that maybe he'll get 5 out of 9 votes to continue. I'm not suggesting exactly quid pro quo, but this
okay,
is part of how it works.
so, the other,
But there are other big asks that are not nearly as selfish.
did this come up at all in that meeting?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, so there are two things that are very notable that came up. One is that, and I could just see this coming like a freight train.
oh, yeah,
It was that there's been a few years where, some people who had been involved in this broadband task force have been rather emphatic in their assertion that the managers pretty much ignored
doesn't want to
the-
do it,
the
doesn't even want to
call
look at it.
for
Yeah,
a feasibility study.
Right,
Now, let's be clear, there's a distinction between dropping a few $100 million on building a network and dropping, I don't know how much money in a
couple
feasibility
million,
study.
yeah.
Well, might be
Well, hiring
less.
consultants, I don't know,
But the thing
Seems
is
that's
that
what it
it's,
costs, yeah.
I think that
it has to be done,
the consultant work is largely basically grabbing facts that have already been researched in other places.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I don't know
So
that
it
that
could be,
even
it could
has
be
to be
less, so it should be
expensive.
done, is what the point
I,
is, yeah.
in my
So
personal
who brought that
opinion,
up in the meeting? Was
Um,
it
there were several city councilors.
Yeah. Malin?
Malin,
McGovern.
Sabrina Wheeler, I think Zondervan, but it's just one of those ones
Yeah, it's
where
pretty universal,
if you want to
people,
make the
yeah.
case that somehow the city manager is not responsive, this is a pretty good way to
Yeah.
attack them on it. So
Yeah.
they were dogpiling on Louis based on the fact that
Nothing's
the
been done since
promise for a
2015 or
feasibility study
16,
hasn't
right,
happened.
Yeah,
Now, personally, I think maybe it would be a good thing to have a feasibility study, even if the conclusion is this is absurdly expensive, and by the time you build it out, all the technology will be so obsolete that you will regret having spent a dime. That's a possibility.
Right. Although some of the suggestions from the task force were that you partner with someone that's
I
done
think
this
that's
kind
the
of thing.
only way to do
Yeah,
it.
well,
is
that's what hopefully this would look at.
you become best
Yeah.
buddies with Google or whatever.
Oh,
and-
not necessarily
and-
Google, it was these other
whoever,
entities
yeah.
in Maine, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
The
So
point is, you
you
gotta
partner
look
up.
at it and give some options.
Right, and feasibility
Yeah.
studies is actually how you find that
Right.
out, right? So
So let's
I,
get it
I
done.
kind of
Yeah.
want them to do that, and if the conclusions
Yeah.
are that that this is this is
Yeah,
bad or good or whatever, fine, but do
Okay.
the study.
okay.
So, but the thing is
But-
that's going to be held over. If Louis doesn't come
Yeah.
back with that,
Yeah.
it
It's
makes
gonna
his
help, yeah.
contract extension.
So can we talk a little bit
Improbable.
about the broadband, because there's a lot of, and I have to go back, I've done extensive notes and research on this, because they kept bringing up in public comment, you know, these communities that have it, Chattanooga, Longmont, Colorado, blah, blah, Concord. Well, the one thing that they don't bring up is that if you want cable TV, which I know is a dying art, you're not going to get that through broadband. You have to still have somebody provide that. And in Concord, the last time I looked, people had a contract with Comcast plus the internet, and it ended up and maybe it was $50 less a month, but it wasn't cheap, you know. And Concord also owns their own utility. Let's not
Yeah.
forget that. And
Yep.
some of these places they own the they own the electric utility. And
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you have to look at some of these
When
things. It's
people-
not just all good, oh, look at all these places that are
Right.
doing it. We're not doing it. Come on. I'm
Right.
not saying it can't be done.
A lot of
But
these
just let's
these supposed comparables
Not
are
compare
honestly,
apples to oranges. Yeah.
counselors basically
Right.
want to make a pitch, so they have their aides
Yeah.
go and find stuff, but
Right.
you know, and they come up, oh well, in this city
Well, it's
they
not
do
just
this and
I
do
mean,
that.
this is long-standing, but
Right.
this has come up before.
But the thing
yeah.
is that a lot of times these
Yeah.
comparable cities aren't comparable.
Right.
You
And
know?
also, they might be part of a consortium. And also, you know,
Right.
cable TV, whatever you want to call it, started in rural places because they couldn't get signals and all. So,
Right. So it was a
Longmont, Colorado,
necessity.
yeah.
Yeah.
And comparing a population that might be spread out over 20 miles to one that's in 7 miles, I don't know. I'm just saying there's a lot of factors here. I don't want to hear any more about a lot of these other places. Let's just do
Yeah.
something more, you know.
I just
So-
want I want to see the price tag. What is the
Right.
price tag?
And also include
and
that.
the nature of the
Yeah,
proposal.
because I have brought that up in meetings
Yeah.
when I used to go to
I-
upgrade,
I-
like, well, what about the people that want to watch TV? What are they going
Right.
to do? Now, we're not all streaming,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So
Well, I'd stream and watch TV.
so the way I look at it is that some sort of movement
Yeah,
to at least get
Oh,
a
this has gotta get
feasibility
done.
study.
I totally agree with that, yeah.
Is intertwined with the manager's contract.
and he's got to
I
do
just
it.
don't see it being any other way.
Yep,
So I imagine
So let-
something will come of it.
okay, so that's
Okay.
good, all
But the
right.
thing is that at this hearing, this government operations committee hearing.
Yeah, what else?
And I don't, it's hard to judge exactly where the political posturing is coming from. But the thing is that, Councilor Carlone basically was up there saying, well, the issue I have, and I love Louis, and well, and I'll probably vote for him, I'm sure, but, so everybody kind of wants to posture as how much they love affordable housing. So, on the one hand, they sort of say, well, let's pass overlays, and the other people say, let's just generate a lot of money, and then, or we'll do both, and then we'll fund everything so liberally that people's heads will spin. So Councilor Carlone actually was quoting the fact that Cambridge's tax rates are set in such a way that we are below our levy limit. I mean, we've been growing our taxable base when
Because
other
we
cities
rely on commercial
couldn't.
versus we have lower
Well,
residential.
not only that, but
Yeah.
the thing is that we actually had some places where we could grow the tax base, and all that new growth was exempt from Prop 2.5 limits.
Mhm.
So we have been using up whether it was University Park, North Point, various other parts of the city, have been basically getting grown up. Kendall Square, quite honestly.
Yeah, and,
So that all this new development came in there, so we were able to grow our tax base, so we never had to go near our levy limit.
yeah,
Furthermore, because there was a skewing of the tax rates under tax classification, so that we could actually basically have 2/3 of the budget be supported, not always 2/3, but in that neck of the woods by the commercial tax base. So then that relieves some of the tax burden on
that's why we
homeowners.
spend $28,000 or 20 on our kids
Right.
a year.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that if you are nowadays with residential property taxes climbing sky high, not taxes, but property values going up, right? Then we've been compensating for that by keeping the tax rates down so that the net tax levy is more or less growing more slowly. In other words, if your property value doubles, you'd have to cut the tax rate in half
Right.
to get the same amount of tax. So the rates have been coming down to sort of match the growing valuations, whatever. But the thing is that we are at, I think what he said, we're at 68% of our levy limit. Boston, Brookline, Somerville are all at like 90
So
some
he's saying
odd
we should go
percent.
higher?
So Carlone's point of
Yeah.
view is somehow we
Yeah.
ought to, kick out the jams and let's just jack up the taxes sky high. I mean, there's no
Well-
way that you could interpret what he said any other way. He said, literally,
It-
we've left $1 billion on
Yeah.
the table.
Except, that hurts someone that is not owner occupied or owns other small property owners. It hurts them,
If
where
you-
condo owners don't pay that much.
If you're a long-term
One of your-
property, no, that's
And
another.
he has brought that up, yeah,
Dirty,
they
dirty
think
little
they should
secret
pay,
is that
yeah,
condo
right.
owners get the sweetest deal because
Right.
of the residential exemption. They get the
Right.
sweetest deal anywhere.
And it could be a $2 million condo.
Right,
or,
but it
yeah.
would be very politically unpopular
Oh,
to
yeah.
actually demand fairness, tax fairness for condo owners because they'd have to pay a lot more, I would
Mm. Yeah,
imagine.
well,
But the thing is I think people like Louis DePasquale and the people in the finance department, to their credit,
because they know this
have,
stuff,
right? Counselors talking about having $1 billion left on the table that we could easily tax everybody for is one point of view, but people within city management have been very sympathetic, and in every year in the manager's letter around budget time makes it really, really clear that we don't want to basically be forcing people out of the houses by saying if somebody's just an older person living in a house and now their property values,
Yeah.
they didn't need to have their property values go sky high. If you
Right.
want to now start saying, well, I'm sorry, Mrs. McGillicuddy, but that $8,000 you'll have to be $20,000 right now because don't you know, we want to fund all these wonderful things. That's a bit of a shock for a lot of residents in the
So
city.
maybe it should be seniors, assuming they're a senior, there's
There-
ways that you can deal with that.
There are,
You know.
yeah, but you can only do things when it comes to taxation
True,
within
it
the
can't be that,
confines of state
yeah,
law.
good point, yeah.
And there are certain kinds of abatements, and there are things
Yeah.
where you can defer taxation so
Right.
that when you die,
Yeah.
your kids are the ones who will have to pay for it out of your estate or something.
Yeah.
But in terms of just sort of continuing living, at in a reasonable way with a reasonable tax growth, so you can plan for it and live with it. I give a tremendous amount of credit to the city administration for keeping a lid on that. Even I think we're growing our budgets a little too fast overall, personally.
Yeah.
But even if people want to argue otherwise about that, fine. But I don't really think it would be a great thing, basically, to say just because we can tax people more, we should.
Yeah.
The budgets are not going down.
Yeah.
No. They are growing faster than inflation
Right,
now. So
right.
if you want to make the case that somehow that the budgets, even though the rate of inflation is 2 or 3% or something, that somehow Cambridge's taxes and budgets should be growing at 12% a year rather than the 6%-ish that they're growing now. I'm sorry, you're not going to sell me on that idea. And I think if people actually started to
Really
understand that
understand it, yeah.
proposal, they would rebel.
Yeah, right along with the AHO
but-
there.
So anyway, so what will
Okay.
be part of the discussion on the manager's
Yeah.
contract? I think you're going to hear broadband
Yeah.
feasibility, which is a completely reasonable ask. And then you're going to
Tax.
absolutely start hearing about
Yeah.
why aren't we cranking it up and
Yeah.
raising more and more and more and more and more and more and more to build more and more and more and more subsidized housing or whatever other projects they want to fund. There does come a point where it starts to become fiscally irresponsible. And it's not all about the AAA bond rating, though that does help in terms of funding various projects, capital projects. But, man.
And it's not the library fines. Can we just
and it's
segue
not
right there?
totally- right, okay, right. Yeah, if we just jack it, we'll just raise up.
No, I mean,
we'll
I'm-
take some of those billions of dollars we left off the selling.
Yeah.
This way, I tell you what, don't bother to bring the books home from the library. Just take it.
I would
We'll buy
just
more.
hope that I think that's a great idea.
I agree. All right. So what
but
is the idea?
The idea is to eliminate fines
Library
because a lot of
fines.
kids have not been able to use the library. I don't know how you remind the kids that their books are due. Can it be a gentle reminder? Because I do think it comes down to individual responsibility.
I agree.
You take something that doesn't belong to you, that's on a loan, you want to get it back. Either so friendly
Yeah.
reminders, I don't know how that happens, but do not just say it's just
Fines
a
should-
financial issue, like these poor kids can't afford, they can't.
Right.
Yeah,
It's a-
eliminate the fines, but do not eliminate
It's-
responsibility.
I
That's
think
all.
there is an
you know.
issue about getting people
It
growing up
teaches
in
you
the
time
city,
management. It teaches you lots of
and
things.
responsibility.
Yeah.
And so token
Yeah.
fines, fine. But if we're talking about,
Well, no, a one time. But just how are we letting these kids know that they have these books?
right. Or
I
maybe
don't know.
maybe what we do is every resident of the city gets 10 get out of jail free cards.
Oh,
Okay, so
That's true. You can get
we'll
something
forgive
free, yeah.
we'll forgive your library
right,
fines.
right.
For
Yeah.
But if you're chronic,
Yeah.
or if you're just taking
Well,
it,
I don't
losing it
think
every
it's
time.
I think that if you have a certain amount that you owe, you don't get to take anything out anymore. So
Is
I
that
don't know.
true?
I'm just saying, let's just incorporate both. Okay, I just don't want to hear. Yeah, there's got to be responsibility on everybody's
Right.
side. So, and the other thing before you get, I know you want to talk about that, just the big belly and
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah.
issue of garbage, and distributing, which I'm all for, distributing a trash barrel, and hopefully one that would just, and this has been an ongoing discussion, I know, in DPW with the Recycling Advisory Committee, and a lot of communities around Belmont, Brookline, all have limited garbage putouts, okay? And we said, we're gonna go first with the compost. We're gonna say, get rid of, because that will eliminate, which is true. So we went the other way. Instead of doing it's called pay as you throw it, really. We said, we'll do that first. Well, now is time. You put out trash, you don't have to put out more than 60 gallons or whatever. And that's
Right.
like 2 garbage bins. So I'm
Yeah.
all for getting rodent-proof bins, because people check your garbage bin, when there's a hole in the bottom, that's how the rats get in. If you put food out there 3 days before your
Yeah.
collection and
I
not
agree.
compost it, and granted, some people don't have
Yeah,
compost,
I've never been
they're gonna go.
I've never been a big fan of so-called pay as you throw.
Well,
but what I think is a fan,
limited
that's
trash.
it. Limited trash.
Don't call a page, because some
Right.
communities had paper bag in a
Yeah.
box. You don't have to do that.
So
Just give them the barrel.
What I basically
the
say,
best thing.
it's because listen, I live next to a place where they've got like
Oh,
12 barrels out,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
then 3 days after
If they're
pickup,
still out.
they're still there.
I know.
You can do see-click fix. You can call it. After a while, you just give up.
well, that came
Yeah.
up in some of these discussions. Is like, I forget who brought it up. Like, are we contacting absentee absentee
Yeah.
landlords? Because it is
And-
an
and,
issue.
Yeah,
it's
in
a
my
problem.
case, it's absentee landlord.
And you're
next
not
door.
supposed to put
Yeah.
out stuff in plastic bags before
Right.
Until the morning.
Yeah.
It's so hard to enforce all this. So people
Right.
just
Yeah, no, and we've had rodent issues and
rats like
barrels like that.
food. They like
complete mismanagement of waste management.
yeah.
Just complete lack of it. So I see it every day.
again. It's individual responsibility. It's not
Right.
all the rats' fault.
So what I would
They
like
have to eat, right?
No, I can't. Yeah, I will never fault a man or a rodent for looking for 3 square meals a day. And if elected, no.
All right.
No.
Okay.
So anyway,
Yeah.
I like the idea of saying, listen, as a resident or as a household, you are allowed to put this much out.
And we'll figure
And
it
if
out.
there are
Yeah.
going to be those occasional times,
Then they
where
pay for it. You
you
get
can
an
either
extra.
pay for
yeah.
it, or you can say, look, I have an exceptional situation this week.
Yeah.
Can I just make
Right.
a special
when you're
request?
Throwing out like a couch or something.
I
which
mean,
you
Ken
should pay
Reeves and
for,
I
yeah.
actually have the same. We
Yeah.
we like this notion of Cambridge as a friendly place.
Yeah.
It shouldn't always be drop the hammer.
Right.
So the thing is that there are going to be certain circumstances where you've got to go a little above it. All right, you want to pay for it? Okay, it's one thing, but maybe can we just basically call it
It's
in
been
and
a
say
very
we've gotta-
political issue. That's why they've never wanted to go there first. They went to the curbside compost first, which
I would.
Anyway,
it's just like
it's-
we have with you're allowed a visitor's permit, but the thing is that
yeah.
if you are, if you're going to go, if you have guests coming over and you can contact
Oh
traffic
yeah,
and parking.
people do it all the time.
And
You
then
get a
they will-
special dispensation.
Yeah, and they'll
Houses
give
of
you,
worship get that
That's
on
right, so
certain
they'll cut you
holidays.
some
It's
slack.
not right.
Yeah, so I like a city that's a little
Just
forgiving,
yeah.
and it's a little give and take.
Right.
Flexible. I think we're good with that. But I do like
Mm-hmm.
the idea of saying, look, you should not be putting routinely out every
Yeah.
week you know.
3 barrels of
you
trash
know,
from a household. I mean,
it's
what's in there?
absurd. I mean,
If you really are recycling, if you really are composting, if you really are not throwing out clothing and things like that, your trash shouldn't be that much.
shouldn't be that
You
much.
know,
right.
I mean, yes, yes.
So I
Okay,
kind of hope we can find a sort of a humane, decent,
Yeah,
sociable
yep,
way of resolving this
right.
matter. Is
And it's
to
not
ensure-
elitist. Please don't
I
go
don't
there.
think of it
No.
at all. It's
Trash
just-
is a universal thing that
good
has to
living,
be dealt
yeah.
with. All right, so you quickly go on those.
The last thing I
got
was
my
just going to
stuff
mention
out.
here is that there was a city
Oh.
city manager's response to there were people concerned about what's going to happen around Lechmere area.
Oh, yeah.
So the thing is that the Green Line is going to get stopped over in Boston. They're going to have to pretty soon, I think, they're going to have to shut it off
Oh, right,
and
yeah.
replace it with buses coming
Mhm.
over the Craigie Bridge, or as some people call it, the Museum of Science Bridge.
Mhm.
So there was a city manager's report on not only bus replacements, but various other issues having to do with that. I love hearing about it, Hope, because honestly, I'm excited
Mhm.
to be seeing
Oh, the
Green
Green
Line
Line
extension
extension,
actually
yeah.
happening. I'm excited at the prospect that at some point the steel viaduct coming over the highway will go away.
Mm,
First Street will go all the way, not only to
really?
McGrath
Oh.
O'Brien Highway, which used to be called Bridge
That's
Street
true,
once,
Yeah.
but you could actually go directly across over to the North Point
Somerville?
area, so it'll
Oh,
help
North Point,
bring
yeah.
the newer parts of the city
Mhm.
into with the old. You know, and really just sort of a better thinking about that whole area. I mean, the Galleria are going to get some rehabbing. The courthouse project will eventually happen.
Mm.
Things will happen down around Lechmere proper, but you know, all the way connecting to North Point. And at some point, there is this great promise that the McGrath O'Brien Highway will not feel like a big highway so much
Oh.
as what we like to call
Will
an
that be in
urban
our
boulevard.
lifetime?
I think it will.
Maybe yours.
Yeah. But I actually find this exciting. People can, argue about surveillance of laryngoscopes and bike lanes and whatever, but actually building cities and making
Mhm.
cities work well, I do find
More
interesting.
more use of public
Yeah,
transit.
and better connectivity,
Mhm.
even for people with motor vehicles.
Mhm.
Yes, there are
You're
some.
not going
Sorry.
to totally get rid of them.
Yeah. So I just think we can make this great, and I really hope that everybody stays on the ball and makes it
Yes.
happen.
So is there, let's see, next week we do have
So we do have a
city
meeting,
council
and
meeting?
there'll probably be a couple of zoning
Oh, it's
petitions
March
passed
2nd
next
already.
week. So
That's
see
right.
you next week.
See you. Bye.